Well, the GOP race may have moved on to Florida, but there is a voting controversy that's going on now in South Carolina that's catching a bit of attention. The Palmetto State's Attorney General saying more than 900 of the voters in the recent elections were actually dead people. And you might wonder, how do those dead people find their way to the polls? That's what we're wondering. Senior correspondent Eric.
Hello, this is Chris Ferrara for Remnant TV, and this is my beef of the day. My beef concerns, it should not surprise you, the ongoing farce of this presidential election. And in particular, putting aside the normal media bias, in recent days, the media's feigned outrage over Trump's claim that the system is rigged and that the election is rigged. Now, they know better. They know that what he's really talking about is that in particular swing states, in particular precincts of swing states, a little bit of vote manipulation can cause that state to go for Clinton, tilting in her favor, perhaps decisively, the Electoral College vote, which is the only vote that matters under our system. I'm thinking in particular of a Washington Post article not long ago, which conceded that, according to reliable data, about 14 or 15% of non-residents of this country admit to being registered illegally to vote. That's the percentage that admits that they're registered to vote. The Times, or rather the Post, hypothesized quite reasonably that about 6.5% of these illegally registered voters actually vote, and that they are substantially a Democratic bloc. They vote for the candidates of the Democrat Party. So that, as the Washington Post conceded, Democratic votes by illegal voters, non-residents of this country, fraudulently registered, could have given North Carolina to Obama, could have given Minnesota to now Senator Franken, and that in close elections, the substantial participation of fraudulently registered non-residents could tilt the election in favor of one candidate or another, but actually in favor of the Democrat candidate, since illegally registered alien voters are essentially, again, a Democrat bloc. This is just one potential factor in the rigging of the vote totals, which could be decisive in the coming election. Remember in 2000, that Gore challenged the pivotal outcome in Florida, which was the only reason Bush won the election in the Electoral College. Ultimately, after the Supreme Court stopped the recount in Florida, Bush won the state of Florida by, believe it or not, 536 votes or thereabouts. Certainly not more than 600 votes. So for the media to feign outrage and ignorance over the potential for the rigging of this election in key states, in swing states, is absurd. And yet we see someone as intelligent as Charles Krauthammer pretending this is just outrageous, that Trump will not concede the outcome of the election beforehand.
But you don't challenge the legitimacy of an election and hold up the prospect of actual non-acceptance. And when he did that, I think it was a terrible mistake.
He knows what's going on. He knows about the potential for fraud, and yet he pretends that Trump has said something outrageous when he declares simply that he wants to wait for the outcome of the election before conceding it, which is precisely what Al Gore did for more than a month after November 8 in 2000, not conceding the election until the Supreme Court shut down the Florida recount on January 13th or thereabouts. So what are we to make of all of this? Well, precisely what Trump says. The entire system, the media, the electoral process itself, in terms of at least one factor, the illegal registration of non-citizens to vote, is in fact rigged in favor of the Democrat Party. That's simply a fact of life in this country, and Trump is merely indicating that that is a fact of life. So what do? We wait, we hope, and we pray that Hillary Clinton, a demon in human form, is not elected on November 8th. For Remnant TV, this is Chris Ferrara. Keep the faith.